In this video, we're going to go over 3 different strategies to improve your focus and eliminate distractions. Number 1 is the calendar tool. So we've touched on different elements of this, but I want to focus on it more here. The idea is you may be doing things multiple times a day that really can be batched into doing a single time a day or maybe twice a day. Email is a good example of that. Facebook, social media, that could be another example of it. There's other things that you're doing every day that you could really get away with doing maybe once a week or maybe 2 days a week. So start looking at your habits. So what I was talking about before is start looking at your habits, your routines, both on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis, but also on that day-to-day, week-to-week basis of what are you doing several times a day, several times a week, maybe several times a month. But mostly it's going to be at that hourly level. Every few hours you're doing something, or every day or few days you're doing something, and try to get rid of most of that activity and batch it into a single time during the day or a single time during the week. Then what you do is you build a system around this. So that means you put it into your calendar and it's a repeating item. That means you go into your bookmarks and you set that up as on that day of the week you go into your bookmarks and you take care of that, and that's the end of the story. So just doing basic stuff like that is super important to building your systems. And these things add and stack on top of each other. So after a month of doing this, you're going to just, it may be hard to realize because you may never measure it. It may never be worth it to go try to measure this stuff every single day. But if you just do back of the napkin math, you're getting huge performance advantages out of just setting up very simple systems like this, because you're removing so much waste and so much negative friction. Another huge thing is working on the wrong problems. So I'm eventually going to create a whole course on this, which is basically systems level thinking, flowcharts, other stuff like that, how to represent complex systems and how to attack them. But the basic idea is you need to figure out what the most important problems are in the different areas of your life. The way you do that is you start to draw out on a piece of paper the process that you're going to go through to solve a problem, or to achieve something that you do every single day, some sort of common task. And the way that I got into this is I started looking at how programmers model their program, because a program is just giving a computer a set of instructions to do. Instruction 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is very similar to your boss, for example, giving you instructions, or you giving somebody else instructions. You're just giving them a list of tasks to do. And a flowchart allows you to represent that and to represent different tasks going off, or more complex versions of that. But it's really, a flowchart is very simple. So you take your most important problems, you draw those out on a flowchart, and then you look at what is the bottleneck, what is the single point where everything's going really well, and then there's this choke point, there's something wrong where everything slows down to a crawl, or stuff doesn't happen, or it just doesn't get done, or other things get in the way. And then you attack that bottleneck, and that's going to free up everything else, and you're going to see huge performance gains. So that's a very general level problem solving tool that's going to allow you to start getting a visual representation of what's going on in different areas of your life, what the bottleneck is, and sometimes it can be as simple as changing a single thing that you do that can really open things up. Finally, addition versus subtraction. This is more of an emotional level thing, which is people are often unconscious of why they do what they do. They have an idea of maybe one reason why they do what they do. That may be correct, but the truth is usually we have multiple pros and cons that are weighing why we do something or why we don't do something. And so people usually think of, okay, I'm going to quit doing this, or I'm going to stop doing this. And part of the problem is when you stop doing something, you don't realize that those things you were doing before were meeting a bunch of different of your 6 human needs at the same time, and your new activity isn't meeting those needs at the same level. And so you may start doing something else that is not constructive based on quitting an old bad habit. You may pick up another bad habit, or you may pick up doing something else that isn't totally in line with where you want to be. And why that happens is because you don't have a real deep understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. And so a better way to approach problems like this oftentimes is, instead of trying to quit something or trying to subtract something, is add something new or add something more. So I'll give you a quick story. My brother got me on these these Dunkin' Donuts, which is a on the East Coast a popular coffee and donut shop, and he got me on these iced coffees, and I had to have one every single morning, and it became this routine I get into, and I like go read for an hour or two, just sitting in the parking lot reading something, and I built this whole like ritual around it where I was like, oh, this is great because I'm like getting this alone time, and I'm focused on one thing, and I get really into it, and I'm learning a lot. But I realized this really isn't a great habit long term, and so I try to just, okay, I'll just stop doing it. I started getting like some withdrawal from the lack of sugar, the lack of caffeine. So I was going to other places to get that sugar. I was going to other places to try to get something to replace that. That was a physiological need where it become an addiction. A lot of people, for example, don't realize that they're addicted to sugar because it's not something that we think about. Same thing with caffeine. A lot of people just don't pay attention to it. So for a while I was trying to cut back on it or do less. And then what I thought of is, well, what if I do more? What if I drink so much of it that I get sick of it and I just don't want it anymore? So over the process of about a week or two, I just every single day I got more and more coffee to the point where on the last couple of days I was drinking 3 or 4 of the largest size iced coffees, and I literally wasn't eating anything else the entire day. I was just drinking these coffees as like I was basically on a full liquid diet, and like sometimes I have a little bit of dinner, but that was it. And but it worked, and it's been over a year since, and I don't have the taste for it anymore. So there's things you can do like that where instead of subtracting you can add, and it's just another experiment that you can try. It's another thing in your toolbox. So that, and also at a deeper level, just getting more aware of your 6 human needs. If you're interested in that, check out my emotional intelligence course or my body language course. I go deepest into that in the emotional intelligence course, but also if you're interested in body language, that's a big component, because a lot of people think body language is about looking at what somebody's doing, but it's really about how that's giving you information about what you should already be able to predict about your own or somebody else's 6 human needs. Because one of the best ways to learn body language is to just pay attention to what you do when you feel a certain emotion. And that's how experts learn body language. That's how I learned a lot of body language. And you get insights that you won't get from books because it just goes so deep. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out those courses because it's really good stuff.